Look at him. Look how he's acting with that suspect, as if they just fucked for the first time, and he doesn't know how to tell him that he loves him. Help him. He's your friend.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Good, Bad, Bad, Good. My name is Travis Horosco. With me, as always, is
Kylie and Amai.
And this week, we have a wonderful, wonderful guest with us.
You're wonderful, wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. We have with us Chris. Chris, why don't you introduce yourself to...
My name is Chris Register. I love movies. I love
That's a good start.
talking about them. I like making them a little bit. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say about
Chris
myself.
is an indie film producer.
Oh, that's right.
So please send him your scripts that you want him to pay for and produce for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
His inbox
Chris
is
will
always
throw
open.
You all the money.
Listen,
for
I have
your
nothing
film.
but money to give for
Yeah.
short movies that won't make any back.
He actually inherited $1 billion, so please just reach out to him on all socials.
Yeah, on all socials. I would actually love if you just started getting a plethora of scripts and people giving you budgets of like, this is how much this one will cost if you could pay 90% of.
Well, my immediate things would be like, where's the money coming from? I'll take all of them.
Someone sends you the script, but like the character limit ends on Instagram, so it's just a bunch of different messages.
Oh,
of,
God.
like,
That's the worst way to read anyone's script. Instagram screenshots. Ugh.
oh yeah, just screenshots.
Yeah, that's great.
No, but Chris is a wonderful, wonderful producer who has produced a few short films now, including
One of them
Kai's.
being mine,
Yeah.
yes. Woo.
Woo!
Which
That's why we look alike.
Eventually will be. Yeah, that's why we're twinning today.
It's only for the video audience.
And this week's episode, Chris actually picked 2024's kindness.
Kindness.
I always want to say
Kind's
kind of
plural.
kindness, not kinds of kindness. I always forget the S.
Wait, you say what?
Kind of kindness.
Oh,
Well, there are three kinds.
there are three
Of
kinds
kindness in this
of-
movie.
Yeah. mhm.
Yes. Okay.
Travis is like, if you say so.
And let's give everyone a plot synopsis. Hey, Google, what is the plot synopsis of the film Kinds of Kindness?
Here's the synopsis of Kinds of Kindness. 3 stories revolve around a man who tries to take control of his own life, a policeman whose wife seems like a different person, and a woman who searches for someone with a special ability.
Yeah.
I mean, that's technically correct. That's all.
So it's interesting that she brings up how she started the summary by saying 3 stories about
a
man
man.
trying to find his way, or how whatever she
trying to
said.
find control
Yeah,
of his
yeah,
life.
Right, but then the last story is actually about a woman.
yeah. And I feel as though every single time I think about this film in some way, I think I have figured it out, and then I immediately have a contradicting thought from the story that I'm like, no, that's not what they meant by that. But before we get into all that, we need verdicts. Chris, since you picked this and you loved this, please tell us what your verdict is for this film.
No, this is my good, bad, bad, good verdict.
Yes.
Yes, and you can also tell us
Why.
for you what the good and the bad mean.
Well, question 1: Can I punt my particular answer till the end of this, or do I need to give it to you now?
Nope.
No, you
Okay,
have to
just
give it now, but
that's
you
fine.
can change.
You can change
change.
it.
Okay, good.
yes. So it's
Good.
like,
All right.
here's what you initially thought, and then we discuss the film, and then it's like, did it change after discussion of the film?
I'm gonna answer this in a slightly roundabout way. I've seen this movie a couple times now, and I have a lot of thoughts about it, mostly positive because I've seen it a handful of times, and there's a reason for that. But the reason that I chose it for this particular thing is because it is a very divisive movie, especially considering that the person who made it just made less than a year ago, like, this astounding Oscar-winning movie called Poor Things. And so for him to turn around and make this that is not nearly the thing that was, I thought was an the 2 people I saw it with separately, we had lots and lots to talk about, not all of it on the same page. If I have to choose one thing, I do think it is a good movie. I think it's a flawed good movie. So I guess that probably puts that in the bad good category. Is that right? I got that right?
Yeah.
So that's my short answer.
Yeah.
It's my short, long answer.
Okay, I like that. I like that. I'm going to have to agree. I thought this was a bad, good movie. Well, yeah. Yeah, we'll see if that changes by the end. But that's what I'm going for now.
Okay.
I think we are all going to be saying the same thing, but I classify it differently. I'm going to say it's a good, bad movie in that it was very good and I loved it, but there were flaws. Kind of
Okay.
like what you're saying.
Okay.
Travis and I realized at some time that we flopped the way that it was looked at. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. And also for you and for all the listeners, viewers at home, these are arbitrary to some extent. It's literally just to get the conversation going.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, we're just talking about a film that we loved or didn't like.
No,
or...
it is either a good, bad,
And you
or
have
a
to
bad,
stick
good
to it.
movie.
This is the internet. People will remember your decision
Yes.
5 years from now.
This is the country and world of black and white thinking.
Yep.
And we have to make sure that we stick to what we say.
This is why I try to not make a decision right away.
Can I punt it, please?
Can I punch it?
Please, can we just talk about the
Can we please?
So each week, each episode, we break down the movie into 3 different categories. The first one being story/script/narrative structure of the film. I guess we should just kind of talk about how this is set up because it is rather unique as opposed to just a straight narrative.
It is very unique.
It's essentially 3 vignettes or 3 separate stories. I will say that I did not know that. Did you know that going into it?
Going into it. This was the first
Did
time.
you know that going into it? The
know
very
that.
first time.
I did know that going in the first time, yes.
So Chris has seen it, what, 3 times?
This is my third time, I guess.
And Travis and I, this was our first time? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no idea going into it. But I do this with most movies, but specifically Yorgos Lanthimos, I just love his films. And so I like to go into things, even not really watching the trailer, just like, I just want to see the film, not know anything about it, watch the film. So that's what I did this time. I remember having seen the trailer. I couldn't remember anything from the trailer except for Emma Stone dancing, because that they like, and I remember that the vibe of the trailer gave me a different idea of what this was compared to what it was.
I mean, well, one, how do you even market this film? First of all, 2, the trailer does nothing. Like
Well, right.
it tells us nothing.
Well,
you know?
because how
but
can
like
you
it's
tell
so yeah,
us
no,
anything because
100%.
there's 3 different
And
stories going on.
Yeah, and like that's what I'm saying. Like the trailer is just so it's pointless for this film.
But also,
to
if
some
you
extent.
explain the plot of each of those shorts, it still wouldn't give you an idea.
Right. Yeah.
So Google over there had the best idea about the surface of this, and that's basically all you can start with, frankly.
Yeah.
So I mean, the first story is called RMF, the death of RMF.
Yes.
It's someone's initials.
Well,
Yes.
I mean, I guess we don't really know that, do we?
Well, we do.
We know
Well,
in the
yeah,
first.
it's
literally
embroidered.
know
No,
someone's
in,
initials. Yeah.
in the first one, yes,
Yeah.
but it's an acronym for all 3.
But he's also in all 3.
Yeah.
Agreed,
Yeah.
but we don't know that those are his initials.
Don't we?
See,
I mean, I think we do.
I think we do.
Yeah, because each thing is each title is explaining RMF doing something. So I imagine it's a character doing something. So initials. Yes, we do in the first one, obviously, because it's embroidered on the shirt.
And it's like a first scene of the movie.
Right, and then the second one is RMF goes flying, and then the third one is RMF eats a sandwich. So so we are talking about a noun, which is a person, place, or thing.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a person.
I also want to point out that in the second one, RMF is flying. He's a helicopter pilot. And in the last one, RMF does eat a sandwich. It happens in the credits.
I couldn't figure out who he was in the second one, but maybe if I watched this movie once or twice more. I did feel like, because I watched this movie today, and I was like, damn, this is the type of movie that I wish I had seen multiple times before having a conversation about it. Because I was like, I feel like there's so many things that I would pick up second, third, fourth time
That's what
around.
most of my notes are.
Thank you.
All of the weird
Thank you for pointing that out, because I was just about to say, jumping ahead, I wanted to know who was he in the second one, because I don't know who he was.
Well, who the hell is he? All in all?
No, yeah, but like, you had made the point of like he's in all 3. I was about to say like, is he? Like, I didn't see him in the second one. The third one, he's the dead guy in the end, right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
But does
and
he eat
also
a sandwich?
the actor
Yes. 'cause he's
at the very end after the credits roll. He's sitting at the burger stand eating a sandwich because now he's alive.
Literally
been
at the
resurrected, yeah.
end
Yes.
of the
Like
of,
during the
of the
credit roll.
black
During
and
the
white
credits.
credits.
No, during the full movie film credits.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, yeah, because each
'Cause, like,
vignette
yeah.
has its own set of credits.
Yeah.
But this is the movie's credits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because yes, he's been resurrected at the end. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go through a brief synopsis of each story. The first one, RMF, The Death of RMF, is about a guy played by Jesse Plemons who is essentially doing everything that Willem Dafoe's character. I'm blanking on their names right now. And because it's all interchangeable.
Raymond Frischman.
Raymond.
Yeah.
Yeah. Raymond.
This is another fun point out that
Robert and Raymond.
well,
right?
all three main characters in that first movie, their initials are RF. We don't know their middle names, but we can assume maybe that their middle names are M.
M.
But we don't know.
didn't catch that.
Willem Dafoe is Raymond Frischman. Jesse Plemons is Robert Fletcher. And then when we eventually meet Emma Stone, she's Rita Fanning. So all three of them are RFs.
Interesting.
I did not.
This is
I
good.
did, not
I did the
catch that.
details
Good.
rewatch because
No,
that's
yeah,
like
good. I try not to pause a movie too many times, but I do find myself pausing movies for this when I'm watching them for specifically this podcast because I pause and I go, no, what was that? And then I'll have to like write something down. So I caught some details, but that one was definitely not one I did go, oh, they all have, I didn't get the F. I caught that they all had first names starting with R, but I did not.
each of them is really only said like literally once in that
Yeah.
short.
I didn't catch their. I didn't even catch that they were all ours.
Yeah.
I did not know because I was more like, what the hell is
is
going
going
on?
Of course, but that's like in all of his movies where you have
Sure,
to like
yeah.
extend your disbelief, recognize
To some
you're in
extent,
a different
yeah.
world.
I think this one is a little bit more absurd than
Oh, for
like
sure.
The Favorite, which is personally my favorite Yorgos film.
Yeah, that is a great film.
Oh my gosh!
So this
I
is
love
more
so
in
much.
line with, I mean, just talking in his au revoir of movies. Like
Yeah.
his last two movies are written by Tony McNamara, so like they have a similarity to them.
Mm-hmm.
Poor Things and The Favorite, but The Lobster and Killing of a Sacred Deer and this movie were all written by someone else whose name I forget.
And
It's
Yorgos.
him. It's
And
him.
Yorgos.
Him and Yorgos and something that sounds very Greek.
That sounds right.
Ephemis Philippou. Philippiou.
Yeah, that person.
Yep.
So all three of these movies, and maybe some of his earlier movies too, were all written. Like, so it's a different tone, but much more in line with like Killing of a Sacred Deer or The Lobster.
Yeah, which are actually The Lobster is maybe my favorite. I loved The Favorite,
did
but
love The
The
Lobster.
Lobster is like that movie. Just that I think that movie I watched when I really was first starting to become more of like a film watcher to watch films and really recognize them as pieces of art and stories that were much more about shaping the way I thought about things rather than just like pure entertainment. And so it was a perfect moment in time when I saw that movie and I was like, what did I just watch? This is great.
Don't think I saw Killing of the Sacred Deer.
Oh, it's a good movie too. It's
I'm a big fan of that
darker.
as well.
Yeah.
Just like this is darker. I kept after watching this movie, since we're talking about sort of plot and all of that, the theme kept coming up for me of his movies in general, and especially the last couple, even Poorer Things. I feel like he really does stories. Part of the reason I love him as a director and a filmmaker is because it's very clear to me that there is a purpose, there is a theme, there is something he's trying to say, which is what I always ask myself at the end of a film. Like, what is this about? And with his movies, I very much feel like he kind of plays in the world of like humans being slaves to our own desires and like how far will we go to get to meet the end of our desire, right? Or to get our desires met, essentially. Who will we follow? What extremes will we go to? And a lot of times that desire is love or to be loved. But I feel like it's theme kind of across the board in all of his films. And I really felt that in this one. But sometimes, like in Poorer Things, we get to the end of it and the theme is very similar, but there's almost like that felt very optimistic. Whereas at the end of this one, there was and we never get our desires met, so fuck everything. It was a very nihilistic feeling to me in a sense.
See,
I would,
you say
I
that,
would
but
disagree with that almost
Yeah.
entirely.
Okay.
yeah.
Do you want to? You jumped in first. But,
Well, no, I was about to say that I feel like everyone got what they wanted at the end of each of them.
at least the first two.
Yeah.
For sure, the first two, and I was gonna say I feel like the second story completely throws a wrench into that.
Wait.
Because what desire was he trying to get in the second one? Like the second one, in my opinion, was also my favorite, which was
Oh, he does. That's
interesting.
right, because Emma Stone comes at the end.
yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
So he gets his wife back. The second was also my favorite the first time I saw it. I don't know if that's still true, but like,
but it's
that was the one I grabbed onto the most.
but it's still he's still exploring the same theme. It was rewarded. He got the thing that he was going after in the second one.
But how does that tie into desire? He just desires his wife to come back?
Well, he wants this thing, and instead of like anybody else might have
But by this thing, I mean it's his wife
his
coming
wife,
back.
yes. And instead, like anybody else might go, no, my wife is back. Like an admission of like here, he wouldn't let go of the fact that this isn't his wife because he didn't want it to be his wife. He was also in the end right, but there is some like, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm no. That's a good question because now I'm like, is that about desire or is that about belief in?
Should we, because these are three separate movies essentially?
Yes.
Should we kind of take them one by
One
one
by
instead
one.
of
I think
instead of diving
that's
into? Because
great.
we were about to get into messy territory. I think.
Yeah, and I was about to say like that. With each of these stories, I go down the same rabbit hole of like I think I have figured out this theme, or I think I have figured out what they're trying to say.
Well, I was
And
also
then-
more talking about the theme of his films
Sure.
in general.
Sure.
I feel like are always exploring this sort of, like humans being slaves to their own desires.
Yeah, and in fact, the first of these. So here, let's just talk about. Let's talk about the first one. The first one, as you said, called "Death of RMF," is essentially about a guy named Robert, whose life is dictated by his boss Raymond. Within the first 10 minutes of that short, one of these dictates, Robert finally stands his ground and says, "I'm not going to do this." His boss wants him to ram into some guy's car.
To kill
kill
he
him.
won't be responsible for someone else's life. That's like his
Right.
That's his line in the
his
sand.
line.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the most of the bulk of that short is the consequences of him saying no to this very powerful person who's been dictating his life.
Right.
So let's start there, I guess, as far as the plot goes for that one. Where do we want to start? I've got so many like detail notes, but let's start higher end, because like, you know.
Yeah,
Let's
so
you guys start.
I mean, I think we could go through the full thing because I want to say this is also the shortest of the three. It definitely felt the shortest to me, at least. I don't know. I didn't look at the
first,
actual
like,
time.
hour of
I
the
did,
film,
but it's about 50
actually.
minutes.
It's about 50 minutes,
Yeah.
so it's not the shortest of the three. I think
I think the
middle one
shortest,
is the shortest. Yeah.
But they're close. They're all within like 10
they're all like
minutes of each other.
40 to 50-ish minutes.
Minutes, yeah.
Because this is a 2 hour and 45 minutes.
That's almost 3 hours.
Yeah. He even has a wife that he married off of the instructions of his boss.
Yeah, his boss dictated his wife, and how many times.
I like that we're
Like, when they
calling
eat
him
breakfast.
his boss because he feels
He is
like
his boss, like, technically, right?
technically, but
Is he?
But see, it almost feels like I wonder what kind of work he actually does because we don't actually see that. We do know he's an architect.
Right, they
That's
mention
the-
a construction site.
Yeah.
So the firm
Right.
is some sort of construction development.
And when he
building type
meets
firm, I assume.
Rita, he asks Rita if she's also an architect.
Yes.
Which you're like, oh, interesting. But that the symbolism of like that job in general is sort of, I mean, is there symbolism there?
Yeah, sure. Like if he's an architect, he's building this guy's life for him.
Yeah, the design
Yeah.
of human life and how to.
It's also architecture's structured, right? It's
Right,
very
right.
Yeah.
like you have to adhere to these blueprints to build this thing accurately. So it
Yes,
doesn't fall
here's
apart.
your blueprint of what you need to eat for the day. Here's the alcohol you are to have to drink.
Here's the time you're supposed to have sex with your wife.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
It's
And you
down to
can't
a
have children, so make sure. So yeah, the themes, there were things going through all three of these stories, but it started in this one with food, sex, and something else I wrote down that just continued to tie in. Of like, food was a very important thing
throughout all of them.
throughout all of
Yeah.
them, and it started in this one. Sex there was a big element of sex, even though we didn't necessarily we didn't see
was
it
no
in
sex,
this
yeah.
one. We recognized that he's having sex every morning with his wife at 8:30 a.m. and she has gotten pregnant several times, and he has basically made her have an abortion without her knowledge of it. She thinks she keeps getting miscarriages because he's sprinkling the abortion pill into her morning coffee when he finds out she's pregnant. So that was a really interesting thing too, because the theme of like sex and procreation sort of is throughout.
I would also say that sex is used. There are lots of control issues throughout this movie about just like in their sexual lives of these characters.
Yes.
Whether it's in the first one where it's dictated when they can have sex, and including
When they can sex and when they can have sex and
when they
if-
can sex.
When they can sex. When they can sex and when they can child.
Yes, exactly,
Title
yes.
of this episode.
When they can sex.
I actually thought it was very interesting that they chose to go that route of like he had to be sneaky and do these abortion pills, because like there's obviously an easier solution to this, right? It's just having a vasectomy. Like,
But
then-
eventually, he might want him to have children.
yeah, sure, I guess. What I was trying to say is like the interesting aspect of these stories, or well, don't quote me on it because I'm sure we could probably find something that completely contradicts what I'm about to say. But I did love that like we were essentially, it felt as though we were holding up a mirror to these men, and that these men were actually pretty terrible. And it's a way of critiquing like masculinity and men, and like how selfish men can be, and not caring about the others in their life, and how their decisions hurt them and like affect them. And I also thought that about the second one, but like we'll get to that one shortly. But I thought it was interesting how like the wife, like the women in the first one are just like not, I don't even know what the right word is for it.
They're more passive.
Yeah,
in
they're
the-
supporting characters
Yeah. They're,
in these men's lives.
His wife, for sure. So, Hong
Rima.
Chau's
Yeah.
wife, the character, for sure. So Robert's wife is definitely subservient, and everything she says is, "Oh, I did this thing. I called the boss. What do you need?" She's very much like that. But then eventually we meet Emma Stone's character,
Rita.
who's under the same regiment that Jesse Plemons' character Robert is under from Raymond.
Mm-hmm.
She's under the same sort of like, do this at this time, eat this, drink that. And I don't see a world where we hold her up to be like, she's someone undergoing the same level of control by this guy, but she's not. I don't think she's brought up to be. I don't think you can easily say that she's a monster like some of the things Robert has had to do would make him.
Although she drives into this guy
She
about
does.
to kill him with the intention of killing him. He doesn't die, but she does drive into this. I think that goes back to the thing that I was sort of going over in my mind, the desire issue of like, these characters desire something, and Raymond's character, these characters meaning Rita and Robert, and Raymond's character is like, we don't know what the desire necessarily is. We just know that they believe that Raymond holds the key to whatever the secret of life is, to very guru, very godlike, because this plays very much in like religious themes of like, and so I feel like there were godlike characters in all of these, but
sure.
Raymond for sure is the godlike character in the first one. And these people are just doing what is told to that they need to do in order to what? And that's the thing that was the big question mark for me, is like, what are they doing these things for exactly?
So I don't have an answer to that per se, but
You should.
I think there is a really there's a fascinating scene. So like, again, just like catching up on the plot, Robert at some point says, "I'm not gonna crash into this guy with my car. He might die. I don't want to be responsible for someone's life." That ends this relationship immediately.
That's a line in the sand.
With Robert and Raymond. Raymond says, "You can go. You are set free." I think he even uses the words, "You're free. You can live your life however you want. You can fuck when you want. You can eat what you want."
He even says you can keep the car and you can keep the house.
That's right. You can go do your thing. And there's a scene not long after that where he's at this bar that they've been to once or twice, this like fancy hotel looking bar, and where it's been dictated what he can drink before. Now he's drinking double Johnny Walkers. He's just like, oh no, actually,
No,
sorry.
that was the only
no.
thing he was ever dictated to
Yes.
drink.
So when he gets to the bar, sorry, that's what it is. He gets to the bar.
He doesn't know what he wants.
And he's
to
like,
drink.
"What?" The guy says, the bartender says, "What can I get you?" I don't know. What do you recommend? I don't know. Do you want to want? And he just cannot make a decision.
Right.
And it was, I don't know what he wanted. I don't know what that character wanted in a grand scheme, but I know that he was unable to make decisions on his own. And that I think was if we want to talk about what he wants, I think it's answered in the inverse of he wants someone to tell him what to do. He wants guidance.
Yes.
In this way, and he just can't, because he just can't do it on his own. There's a lot of I'm glad you brought up like biblical stuff. I think it's really easy to think of like the Raymond character as a god figure,
or a cult leader, or it's easy to go there. Yeah.
And with that framing in mind, when I was watching this again, I noticed a couple things. One, everything in that first part of that, in that first short, is choreographed, manipulated. Like Raymond knows everybody. That doctor you went to, he's a great doctor. He knows the bartender knows exactly what Robert is supposed to have. At one point he comes in and he says, "Hey, I'd like a Johnny Walker," but he's been told to drink something non-alcoholic, and the bartender's like, and he's like, "Fine, I'll have a Shirley Temple." No,
he'll have a Virgin Mary, because it cracked me up, because when the bartender like pulls that up and sets it down, my first thought was, no fucking way, that's way too quick. And then he goes, "Well, that was very quick." Yeah. And I just that was one moment where I like audibly laughed aloud, because I was like, that's great.
I bring this up because I think like a vibe that I didn't put on this the first time that I watched this was that it has this sort of, at least this short has this sort of Truman Show vibe of like like there is this control about literally everything. But I also took a step further and said there's also sort of like a Job story here. Where, the Job story of like God is gonna, like this guy who just worships God, and God's gonna just wreck his life and just assume he's gonna come back to him. And there's, I don't know if it's not exactly an inverse, it's not exactly the same thing, but like this idea that this Raymond character will say, "You're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, and if you don't, you have nothing."
Right.
Like, I am everything that you have. And if you're not going to listen to me, enjoy life without me.
Right.
And I think like that sort of, I don't know.
I think that's absolutely that story, especially because by the end of this, so just to further the plot along, Raymond is unleashed and can't figure out anything for himself, and goes about trying to do all of these things. Nothing is working out, so he comes begging back to, Robert is what I meant. He comes begging back to Raymond. Raymond says, "No, I won't have you. You're out on your own." More bad stuff happens. So he comes back again. "Please, Raymond, no, I won't have you." More bad stuff happens until he decides the line that he wasn't able to cross in the beginning, which was killing this other person, our RMF. He then runs over with his car in the hospital parking lot twice to make sure that he's dead, and then comes back to Raymond, and that's when Raymond is like, "Good boy." Raymond and his wife, and then
and I don't think she's his wife, but like whatever Vivian is, the Margot Qualley character. I want to add a quick thing in between there, because what that bit of plot synopsis leaves out, yes, he does do that, that's how that ends, is that what he couldn't do So when he meets Rita, again, Emma Stone's character,
Yeah.
he becomes a little obsessed with her because he sees that she is also palling around with Raymond, and he quickly discovers that Raymond is telling her exactly what to do in the same way. And the reason that he goes and does what he does and in the hospital and runs over this guy he could do in the first place is because she successfully did. Like she
didn't kill him, but yes.
And the goal was never to kill him. The goal was to run into him very fast with your car. He
Yeah.
might die. He might get seriously injured. That's cool, basically, says Raymond.
Wait, really? Because that's
goal,
what he did.
The goal is not to kill him. Robert says, I might kill him if I do this. And Raymond says, that might happen. He's prepared for that. The goal is not to kill this guy. The goal is to do this very dangerous thing.
Yes,
I disagree with that because he
I-
did do that, though. He ran...
He eventually does.
No. He rammed his car into him in the intersection.
Correct.
But Raymond comes back and says that's not fast enough.
Well, what Raymond's instructions were, and you kind of see this again, like the way they talked about afterwards. Raymond's instructions are run into this guy and make sure you go to the hospital. It's why in the beginning of the movie, Jesse Plemons only has like a scratch, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I need to go to the hospital."
Yes.
He's so insistent on going to the hospital,
Yes.
even though he does not need to, because that was the direction that Raymond gave him.
Right,
was
but
to
then
get
the
so
interesting-
injured that you go to the hospital.
Right, but then the interesting thing is that he comes back into Raymond's good graces by actually killing this guy. Because that's the thing that he was afraid of doing.
Correct.
That Raymond clocked. And so to get back into Raymond's good graces, he has to cross his threshold, which is killing this guy. At this point, anyways, because Rita's already done the running into and going to the hospital.
But I bring this up because Raymond dictates a lot of things, but he doesn't seem to dictate outcomes. He says, I want you to
Sure.
do this, I want you to do that. Mm-hmm. Things will happen by X, Y, and Z happening, but he's not saying, like, he's not
This guy must die.
he doesn't say, he
Yeah.
never says that.
Right.
His intention is not to have him murder this guy. His intention is to do this dangerous thing and get himself
Right.
injured enough to go to the hospital.
Does this testing your theory?
Yeah.
What about him telling Robert that Robert cannot have children? That's sort of that's an outcome.
That isn't so maybe that phrase is the wrong way to put
Yeah.
it. But I think it's very important. It's an important distinction that like he never says go murder this guy.
Right.
He says do this dangerous thing, and Robert says but that might kill him. He says okay. If
Right.
that happens, that happens.
Right.
And actually to make another point, like when Emma Stone's character has done the thing, she's hit this guy in his car at the same intersection enough to get herself in the hospital. He's not dead. RMF is not dead.
Right.
He's seriously injured.
Right.
But he's not dead.
So then why do we think he takes him back for running over him with his car?
Well, actually, as we're talking about this out loud, this might be my first, like, kind of logical flaw with this. Because, like, he does, like, there is no reason to, like, it's actually sort of flawed logic on Robert's part to go, oh, what I needed to do is kill this guy.
Right.
Well, no, what you needed to do is the thing Raymond told you to do, which wasn't kill this guy, but which was to do this dangerous thing. So, in a way,
Right, but that's why
He
I'm
actually
saying it's
doesn't do the
either
thing he's
it's
asked to
either
do.
flawed logic in the story or your theory is incorrect. That's why I was testing your theory by going, but wait, is it that he's not dictating the outcome? Because clearly he dictates the outcome by saying you can't have children. So there's
Sure, yeah.
but there's that constant question through this entire film and definitely in this first piece where you're going, what exactly is being said here about humanity, about what we do. While we're having this conversation, what's coming up for me is just like the idea of not understanding or not being afraid to make a move no matter what the outcome will be, right? But like also what is he saying about that? Like what is it saying?
So if you want to take a step back and be as frustrated as like Robert's character is, and we want to put this in that context of like Raymond is a godlike figure, you can also say like God gives us a bunch of signals and we have to interpret them somehow.
Right.
Sometimes we get them right, sometimes we get them wrong. But like, we don't actually know we know what was told.
Right.
We don't know what the intention was.
That's why I kind of felt at the end of this, nihilistic is the word that I used, but maybe that was a little harsh. I think, but there is a more pessimistic isn't great either, but it doesn't feel like an optimistic ending in any way in any of these films. Maybe in the second one, but in any of these, I just feel like the ending is kind of like, yep, and we have to keep fucking going, right?
Sure.
Which is like, that's kind of it. It's like, what else do we have? We're these like, these things that are just spinning round in circles trying to figure out how to make A to Z happen. And we have no idea what we're supposed to do, who we're supposed to be. And we're just looking for some, you know.
Is it pessimistic from our point of view, though? Or is it pessimistic from the character's point of view? Because I still feel like I disagree with you on that. Because each of the main characters get what they want. So is it pessimistic? Is it pessimistic because you, Kai, look at this situation and think like that's a really
Sure, I get what you're saying. I was more asking what's the filmmaker's sort of view on all of this. And so so you're right, it is me watching this movie and going, yeah, he like gets what he wants, but he doesn't actually get what he wants, because what he actually wanted was to be set free and to make his own fucking decisions, and then realizes he can't do that, he doesn't know how, and he quickly squirrels back into, no, I must have
but
Raymond.
I don't think that's what he wanted. I don't think he wanted being free.
Really?
I think he wanted guidance, he wanted structure, he wants the regimented life.
Yes, but I think for a moment there was a part of him, and no, maybe I'm wrong, but for me there was a moment there where it was like, oh, or maybe it's what I wanted for him, not what he actually wanted, which was, oh, you can figure out how to do this on your own, buddy. Yeah. Go out onto your own.
There's never a moment.
Maybe it's not that, because he doesn't say that. He just doesn't want to kill a guy.
Because it's like the moment,
exactly.
The moment he actually attained freedom, though, he hated it and immediately was like, So
there's the theme.
What?
Do we actually think we want freedom? That's the question of this story and possibly the film.
Well, I think it's definitely a theme of like free will is an important part of this
right.
question, because the moment that this character demands free will, he said you can't have it.
Right.
Or if you want a little free will, you can have all the free will you want. Now I'm walking away, says our God character.
Right.
See, if we're going the biblical route, God essentially always gives us free will, right? Like,
I mean, I'm not religious, so I would also think that.
But
like,
theoretically, like if you're talking about Job, if you're talking about Abraham, if you're talking about any of those classic ones, all of those individuals have free will. It's just a matter of whether we're actually going to do what we are told in faith towards God, right? Like Abraham has the free will to kill his child or not.
Yeah.
And he chooses to go about going to kill his son because God told him to.
Yeah.
So in this one, he always had free will. It's just a matter of whether he follows Robert's guidance and like
Raymond's.
But
sorry.
he doesn't want it.
He's Robert.
Yeah.
So another thing I was going to say is that as far as like the ending of this piece goes, the way I see this is that final moment is for Robert, for Jesse Plemons' character, is this profound catharsis because he has guidance and then he loses it when he demands a little bit of free will, and then he is just lost until he does this thing he never thought he'd do, murders this guy in cold blood. And when he arrives at Raymond's house, he is bawling his eyes out. He can't even talk. He's crying so hard, and he hugs Vivian, the other woman in the movie. It is compared to how he is the rest of this movie. There's never a moment before this where he lets anyone inside of his little his little mask of everything's fine, because through most of this piece everything is not fine for him, but anytime everyone asks, oh no, I'm okay, my wife's having a little thing, but I'm fine, I'm just like, he just refuses to acknowledge any sort of grief or trouble on his one whatsoever.
Right.
But at the end it all just comes flooding out.
Right.
And all of that is just like he's the first time he's not wearing a suit or in home clothes. He's like his hair is shaved, I believe, too. Right. Or maybe I'm making that up.
Ooh.
No.
Oh, I might be making that up.
He's in scrubs because he was at the hospital.
Yeah.
Right. So he's sort of like laid bare in this way.
Okay, so there's an interesting.
I'd love this. I just love that like we're just going off a whole bunch of different things and these different interpretations.
Well, that's why I love this filmmaker.
No, yeah.
always, because
just a lot
like
of shit there.
there's so much shit there, but it's so much shit that that me specifically as a human is interested in, whereas like there are other directors or people who do things like this that I watch it and I go, what the fuck was that? And there's something about his specific bizarre exploration that like I eat it up. But with what you were just saying,
Catharsis laid bare, crying.
He's in
yeah,
Scrubs.
the crying, the emotional, he finally ejects emotion, essentially.
Yeah.
We finally see him as a real human
He's very cold
having
otherwise, right?
So there's maybe the conversation there about like, are we maybe, I don't know, was Raymond, that just makes me question, like, was Raymond always trying to push him to burst? Maybe all of these things that he's having Robert do, including drugging his wife and telling him not to have babies and whatever, was to push some emotional like reaction of like, will you be a human? Because Robert came to him wanting control. I don't know. There is that.
We don't ever see how their relationship began.
Yeah.
We know it's been
Yeah.
going on for 10 years because he says that.
Yeah. It was Raymond actually doing all of these things to push him, to get him to have an actual emotional, to one, I think, make a decision on his own, which is what he ended up doing. I'm
Sure.
going to kill this guy.
Sure.
So it actually goes back to what we were first talking about, which is, you're right. Raymond did not ask him to kill this guy, but this was a decision he made of his own volition. So actually, okay, I'm going all the way back.
All right.
I am going back to what I think he actually wanted, Robert, when he told Raymond to fuck off, essentially, or this is my line, I'm not going to cross it. He wanted to have free will, use free will. That's what he was doing by saying no, line drawn in the sand. And then by the end of it, he actually uses his own free will to make a choice to kill this man. This is not something Raymond told him to do,
That's true, yeah.
but he did it anyways. And then he had this human emotional breakdown, visceral reaction, and then is rewarded by it in the end.
So all the things, it's interesting.
another theory.
No, I love it because I was thinking about this. Like all of the things that Raymond asks Robert to do in this piece are, in a way, bettering. Hey, your hair looks good this way. Eat this thing. Gain a little weight.
The weight thing. That was the other thing. The food and the weight. Weight was all over this movie in all three stories. I'll point it out as we go
let's
along.
get to that.
into the
I'm not.
other
I don't know
ones,
in
but
the second one. I know in the third one, but that's interesting. But like all of these things seem like, at least in a way, the things that like a well-meaning but very unempathetic like father figure would give you, right? Like, I want you to be better. You may be suffering under these edicts, but I want you to be better. I want you to be your best self.
Right.
And so like there is this kind of, and I think this actually goes back to the title of the movie. It is some real fucked up kind
of
kindness.
Yeah,
where I'm trying to make you better. I'm trying to like,
Right.
but yeah, it's real backwards. It's real dark and it's real controlling. Yeah.
And with that, can we move on to RMF is Flying?
Yes.
Sure can. Yeah.
Because I do think the second story is the one that,
throws a wrench in some of the stuff we've been talking about.
but for me personally as
Yeah.
well, like even like while watching it, I'm like, or like thinking back about watching it, I'm like, I think I figured it out. But the second one is different in my opinion. Because
Can I bring up one more point about the first one?
sure.
No.
And this is a tiny detail that I loved. So at the intersection where they're crashing, this happens, like I guess you see it twice. There's a street sign, and the street sign is Perdido, which is a Spanish Portuguese word.
For a dog.
No, that's perro.
Oh, you're
Perdido.
right. You're
Well, I
right.
looked it up just to make sure.
No, because I just kept having the dog theme that was also.
That's in the second movie,
Yeah.
which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
But
And the third.
but I love that it sort of begins this movie. It's him at this like in this intersection crashing this car, and when I looked that word up, it means a bunch of things, but including things like lost, ruined, defeated, and also just about to be killed. So there's this like when I saw that, I thought that was an interesting like kind of subtextual idea that like this character is a bit lost, and he's a bit adrift, and especially when he loses this kind of guiding light father figure, he's extra lost.
Right.
And it's also this intersection where he's about to murder someone.
Right.
So like just I just thought that was I'm in this is me loving. I love details in movies.
And the little acorns.
And I love any filmmaker who just wants to pepper them throughout their film for me to go, oh, you are really giving an entire package and not just here's this plot.
Well, and
Here's this thing.
I think with storytelling, the way that this is told in these small vignettes and the worlds that he builds that are always outside of the ordinary, even, to start, it always starts for me with the way everyone speaks to one another, which is so...
He's stilted, like...
Yes. Factual. There's no emotion with much of anything. So I think you have to paint all the details in when that's the version of storytelling.
And one last one. Sorry, I swear.
No, I love it.
So in the beginning,
this podcast episode is meant to be as long as the movie, so you just go ahead.
In the beginning, Robert gives them a gift. Raymond gives them a gift, and the gift is a John McEnroe tennis racket that's broken.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And later on, we see that this is part of a collection of sports memorabilia that
he ends up selling.
But did you notice something about the sports memorabilia? That it's all not winning stuff. So there's there's
Tanya.
a race. There's a Tanya Harding thing, but it's like third place in something.
Yeah.
There's a scorched racing helmet from Eric Senna, who I either died or was in a terrible car crash.
Right.
Who's like a Formula One racer. There was
what were the Michael Jordans?
There were some Michael Jordan shoes from just some game. Not a playoff game, not a winning game, just some game somewhere. I don't know basketball enough to want. But I love that this entire collection of memorabilia is like not the best stuff, but this like second rate, or like destructive things, like almost losing things in this way.
Well, so there goes back to the theme of like perhaps we have to like lose ourselves or what we think is the thing that we need to actually find ourselves. Which goes back to the like him having to run over this person to actually find his...
The idea that you have to get all the way down here before you can kind of start climbing back up.
Yeah.
The Jordans were from like 1984, if I remember.
That might be right.
And in the 80s, that's when Jordan kept running into the Pistons in the playoffs, and he never won in the playoffs.
Okay.
So, I mean, it maybe might not have been one particular game, but it's an interesting era of Jordan because the 90s was when he was dominant and when we think about Jordan.
Right.
They do name call the game. I just don't know the reference well enough to understand it.
I mean, I know a lot about Jordan, and I will say I did not think that it was any significant. Like, it wasn't like it was like, oh, it was the 1996, like, blah, blah, blah.
That's the thing with his movies, because everything is so sort of bizarre that you're just kind of going, what the fuck am I watching? Instead of recognizing that, like, everything is a detail. That's why it's so bizarre, because otherwise you could just easily be like, well, what? This scene didn't need to be there, or that scene didn't need. I think they all.
It's all on purpose. It's all there on purpose.
Or he builds these types of films that makes us think that everything is a detail. David Lynch has this very.
Well, but this is what I was thinking earlier. Is like David Lynch is one of my least favorite filmmakers. I know that is not a popular thing.
I've also had that. Yeah.
I think that I have to go back and watch his films more, and it's not because I just don't. There are some films that I like.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the style of acting more than anything for me with David Lynch films, I do understand it's a heightened, totally surreal style. Same way Yorgos Lanthimos has this very different, but I like the style that Yorgos Lanthimos uses, and whereas David Lynch feels almost soap opera-esque. I don't know how to describe. There's something very,
which is interesting because the acting in Yorgos's films, particularly this one, is not the greatest.
Yeah, it's much more close to like a bad movie acting.
Yeah. What's interesting about your take on Lynch, in my opinion, is that there's been several films that, one, we have watched, two, you and I have even just talked about, like as friends, that I feel like are very Lynchian.
But love?
That you love, and like it's crazy to just think from a film perspective of like it's like saying, oh, I really like, a thriller from the 90s, but like I really dislike Hitchcock. You know what I mean? Just like
Totally.
the foundational
You're right. I
filmmaking.
think I probably need to go back. It's been hard for me to go back and watch Lynch.
Sure. No,
And
Lynch is definitely an acquired taste. It's an acquired taste. I just think it's interesting that you like so many films.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because
yeah.
I think that I understand people who love Lynch. I understand the Easter eggs and the everything has a purpose, but for whatever reason, I don't actually believe that everything in Lynch films does have a purpose.
It's interesting. And what I was about to say about the quote, though,
Yeah.
is that he has this famous quote where, when you watch a Lynch film, everyone's like, oh, what does that mean? What does the street sign mean? Like, blah, blah, blah. And he has this quote where he says, sometimes the curtains are just fucking blue. And because people watch it and like, oh, why did he choose blue for like these curtains and blah, blah, blah.
I think there's something about Lynch that makes me believe that he then purposely throws in things that
But that could be
are
argued
just the
about
curtain
Yorgos as well.
being
To
blue.
some extent.
Right.
Because that's
I-
just a personal
I
reflection.
know
on,
that we're
the
not
film.
talking about David Lynch movies, really. But I will say that
We're
as
talking
some
about movies.
Well,
in
no, I
general.
know.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. This is a movie podcast.
One
Yeah.
of my favorite types of filmmakers is what, like I just said a minute ago, ones who are just say, every detail matters, I'm going to give them all to you, you're going to go find them when you want to.
Right.
I don't think actually David Lynch really does that.
No.
And I don't think that every corner of his movies are like, ooh, what does that mean? I think a lot of times he's just like, that's cool, we'll put it in there.
That's what I mean,
Yeah.
which is what I don't appreciate about maybe I shouldn't say Lynch movies. I should say fans of Lynch movies who are then like everything he does, and I'm like, really? I don't think so. But when I watch something like a Yorgos Lanthimos thing, I actually think, like, watching this, I'm like, no, I kind of feel like all the details that are put in are there for a reason. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's also the same as
But
when
then
I watch.
aren't you just a fan of Lynch?
Like
you're talking about the fan for Lynch.
Yes, but I
But
believe
you're
that.
right.
But I'm right. Whereas they're incorrect. No, I do. I like Blue Velvet is one of my. I really do appreciate that movie, and like I think that I would like a lot
One
more.
of his lighter films. Yeah.
Yeah, lighter films. Yeah. No, I think I missed a certain window of like watching those films and like going back. I don't know.
No,
don't
I
know
just
what it
love
is
that this
for
film
me.
is actually bringing it. We've been talking about this film and how there are things within the film that contradict even our own thoughts on this film.
Right.
And how you are also contradicting yourself in talking
Correct,
about
but
David
I contradict
Lynch. Also,
myself
No,
quite often.
I think it's fascinating and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
great.
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's one of the reasons I love films.
Well, right, and it's one of the reasons I love filmmakers who are talked about often like this, is because when watching a film, I want to go away and think about it. I want to have discussions about it. So whether I'm obsessed with a David Lynch film or not, the fact is the man still makes films that are going to there's going to be a conversation about it, which is what I appreciate, and it'll make you feel something, which is also what I appreciate.
Okay, can
Yes,
we move on
continue.
to the second
Yeah, let's
one?
do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Can we talk about this before we move into the second one? What the hell does RMF stand for, you think?
The internet has some ideas. I forget what they are.
No,
'cause
what do
that's
you
your
think?
idea?
What do you think?
I don't know. I think it's just some. I don't know. I don't have a good answer to like what those initials might stand for. Besides, it's just some dude's name.
I specifically did not, because like I Googled or like I looked up the film, and then one of the Google suggestions was, what does RMF mean? And I'm like, I'm not going to look at it because I don't want, someone out there has probably figured out like, or has a very compelling theory for what it may mean. And I'm like, I don't want to do that because
I'm going to look it up right now. I'm not going to tell you unless it's interesting.
Do you have an idea?
No.
Neither do I. So let's go to what other
I mean-
people's
Well,
ideas
I
are.
mean, it's gonna be. It's gonna.
It would be-
it's gonna
Rick meets Felix. And what we don't know,
It's actually like Richard Martin Fernandez.
it's like or it's three Greek names.
yeah.
Yeah. The guy that plays RMF is actually a childhood friend of Yorgos Lanthimos. Which I appreciated. Like he's been in several of Yorgos Lanthimos's films, but like is not an actor outside of that. He just throws them.
I have
films.
nothing to base this off of. This is just my own assumption from watching several of his films. I feel like his film sets are probably fun. Like
Oh my
just like you like
God.
want to
Yes,
like
I would love
Yeah.
to. Yeah, yeah. And he picks.
And I have nothing that, like, he could be a complete dictator like David Fincher or something for all I know. Like, I have not looked into this at all.
Right.
But it feels like
I feel like the same
He seems
actors
fun,
would
Yeah.
not continue
Right.
to go on working with him
Exactly.
movie after movie if he.
I think you're underestimating actors.
Yeah, that's maybe true.
Because Kate Winslet was like, fuck James Cameron, I'm never working with him again. And then she's in Avatar.
If you watch interviews with Yorgos and like he seems like a fun guy, but also like every single one of his movies, as dark and as fucked up as they are, there's always this weird dark humor.
Oh my gosh,
about
yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And there's a playfulness throughout all of them. I'm assuming that's because that kind of permeates these sets in the creative process.
Yeah.
In these, that there's a lot of just like,
And that's who he is.
that's probably who he is. It'd be my guess,
Yeah.
because like it just permeates all of these movies.
Yeah.
Right.
With that being said,
Yeah.
in part 2, I'm just going to start with, we're going to go all over the place, I'm
Yeah.
sure, when talking about this one. But I'm going to start with my favorite quote from probably the whole movie. When, do we know Jesse Plemons' character's name in the second one?
Daniel.
Daniel. When Daniel is talking to his therapist and he says that my wife cut off her finger and served it to me, he says the line, I didn't eat it, the cat did. And it's so, the delivery of that line is just so like, well, yeah, of course the cat did. Like,
Well, because he says it in this way as if he's defending the idea of eating it, even though he didn't. Like, he says it like, well, I didn't eat it, the cat did. Like I wouldn't do such a gross thing. The cat did. Don't worry about it. Like, he says it as if he did not ask her
to
cut off her finger.
What I love about when he asks her is he says,
wait, okay. I was like, wait, did I drink this already?
I never even filled it up.
pass it around the brandy, folks. No, what my favorite
Can I just finish?
part about all of that is when he asks her to cut off her finger, says that that's what he would like to eat. He says one of the fingers or the thumb. I don't care. It's whatever your choice, whatever. Which was so. There's such sadistic stuff happening in this one.
Well, shall we do plot for that? Here,
Yes.
I'll do a quick plot for this one.
Do it.
This is a short about a guy named Daniel,
hot in here.
who's Jesse Plemons. He's a cop. His wife, Liz, is like a marine biologist researcher. She's been missing. Her boat disappeared in wherever she was doing boat stuff. And they're
Doing boat
stuff. And
Her and her 5 cronies went out and did boat stuff
Well, yes,
and
exactly.
got lost.
She's a shrimp fisher.
And so his best friend is his partner.
She comes back.
His
I
cop
had
partner?
shrimp soup, shrimp salad.
He's a cop. His best friend's his partner. His wife does boat stuff.
Sorry, we got you hooked on boat stuff.
Whatever.
His wife does boat stuff.
That's the episode title.
He's distraught. He's weird. Eventually, she comes back, and he, after a few scenes, he's like, "That's not my wife. Something is weird." Eventually, he gets it in his head that she's some imposter, and due to a series of things, he gets her to cut off her finger to feed to him, and he eventually asks her to cut out her own liver to feed him because he's famished, and then by the end, his actual wife comes back. It's all very surreal, but that is just the linear plot of this piece.
Right.
I loved this one so much.
Yeah.
Like, my love for this one compared to the... I liked all 3 of them. I think the third one was my least favorite, which I'd be interested to hear what you all thought in terms of ranking the 3. I loved... this one kept me so engaged from the beginning to the end of, like, what the hell is going on? Mm-hmm. But also in, like, a mysterious way, not necessarily, like, a surreal way. Not like a what is happening, more of, like, what the hell is, like, going to happen.
Sure.
The suspense of, like, is he... the emotional roller coaster I went on with this one of, like, I'm on his side, I'm not on his side, he's a terrible person, he's not a terrible person, he, like... I was all over the place with this one, and I really appreciated and loved that journey as a viewer.
I actually did not once think this guy is a terrible person. Not once. But I did think mental illness.
Sure.
So I was going, is this all happening sort of in his head? Is it real? Is it head? Is it real? Is it head? Like, what is... Yeah, so same roller coaster.
So I went the point where I thought where he went to, like, The point where I went, he is a bad person, is when he started to tell her to like cut off her finger. But then also in that therapy session, he says like she came downstairs and she started hitting her stomach and her face.
Right.
And then we have the doctor scene, the doctor's appointment scene, where she says that so then I'm like, oh, he's abusing her. So that's why I'm like, he's a terrible person. No, because that's what she said.
Right, but
Right.
I thought, but I very
And
much
I believe
even
women,
in that.
Kai. I'm sorry.
Right,
It's just
right.
that-
I immediately did not believe her. No, I thought, no, I believed Jesse Plemons' character throughout. I think because this started off in such a weird note, anyways, and the thing with her shoe size, and there were
Sure.
little notes that I was like, no, this is not his wife, and he knows that, but. What I was questioning is it not his wife only in his head, or is it actually not his wife?
I didn't think about this entire thing. One of the through lines is, here's this guy. Is he losing it? Is this actually his wife? Does the audience want to believe the delusion? Sorry, does the audience get to question, is he deluded or not?
Right.
The evidence that's presented to us as an audience is given to us as if he is not, as if he is sane, as if his wife is this weird imposter. But I didn't think about this until you said it. We never actually see where she gets these bruises. It's him who says, I saw. Now in the edit, like he says it to the audience, or he says it to someone before she says it.
Yep.
But he says, I came downstairs and I saw her hitting herself.
Yep.
And then the next scene is her in her gynecologist's office, like, and she sees these bruises. So we don't actually know.
I immediately
which I never thought about until you said
well,
this.
I just immediately believed him only because he did this sadistic, weird, fucked up thing where he asked her to chop off her finger, and she did it. So then
That didn't happen yet, though.
It did.
Yeah, it did.
Did it?
It had already happened.
So she's thumbless when she's in the doctor's office?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so
Okay.
so then I believed that she might do this thing to then make, because clearly now he's like trying to make her look crazy, because he goes to his doctor and he's like, she cut off her finger and she tried to feed it to me. He does not tell him what actually happened.
That I told her to do that, yeah.
And then
So then is it possible that he told her to hit herself?
possibly, but my thought was she is now gonna play the game. So she recognizes that he's gonna tell people that she's gone crazy. So she's playing the game now by punching her own self and going, he abused me.
But what makes you say
to
that?
even the score?
What makes you think that she's playing a game now?
Because because I'm a woman.
Well, but also let's not forget in the plot of this piece, there is his real wife does come back.
Yeah.
Unless we want to call that a delusion. If we take everything as
No.
literal.
I don't
we
think
take
it
everything
is
as
a
literal-
delusion. I'm saying the roller coaster I was on was questioning
I
it
agree.
until the end.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying, looking back at all the things that she does, you think, oh, actually she was some sort of imposter. Like,
Right. Sure.
that he was correct in saying these things. And the list of things is not short. Basically, when she comes back, everything she does is him questioning. First, it's her shoes don't fit. Second, at first it's like she loves
The
chocolate
song.
cake.
Yeah.
So I want to eat all this chocolate cake.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, Liz doesn't like cake. Doesn't like chocolate. So A, it's chocolate. B, it's the shoes don't fit anymore. C, the song.
favorite song.
She asked my favorite song.
She's really weird about them immediately going to fucking, which is not what they do. They take their sweet time to get into that foursome.
That was the most normal thing of like all the things that she was.
Although,
like, all
I
the
just
things
thought it
that
was
she
a really funny interaction or reaction from the other three when she's like, okay, are we going to fuck?
Oh,
and
yeah,
they're
yeah.
like,
Because when we're introduced to this idea that these two couples have
they
fucked together,
swing, yeah.
they that like it's all like I don't know if we should, like before Liz comes back, they're like I don't know if we should talk about this again, like
Right,
it's
right.
weird to
Let's
relive
give
this.
Did I just say
And then
how
as soon as
hilarious?
she's back, she's like
When-
let's do it.
How hilarious!
When he
They
says-
set it up.
let's watch these videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All he says is like, I want to see the video of us with Liz or whatever.
Yeah,
and like we don't know
remind-
what it is.
Right.
But then it's like literally a hard cut to their sex tape.
It's like this wife swapping foursome.
Yeah. Which they are then uncomfortably sitting through
And
which
watching,
is so
yeah.
funny because he also says, I just want to watch a minute of it,
Just a
right?
minute, just a
but then
minute.
it also is clear that they've been watching it for much longer than a minute.
And he
Like, can
also
you-
basically
can you turn it
manipulates
down,
them
please?
into watching it because he starts crying at the table.
Right.
And they're like, okay, fine, we'll go watch.
Well,
we'll
that's
watch
the other
them.
thing too. Jesse Plemons' character in this one too is very deadpan or like
Yeah.
dry face. I'm going to call it dry face because you had talked about his break in the first one is him sobbing.
Sure,
So
sure.
I like the term dry face. You guys don't like it as much.
No,
as
it's
I do.
fine. I'm sorry. I'm looking at my notes to see what else we got. Like, because there's so many weird things in this.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I'm just trying to think of the next thing to try and disprove you, Kai.
oh, I like that. That's your goal. I just like talking about the weird
Always.
details. So like the first thing that happens in this thing is he's, there's this long shot of him like getting his cereal ready, and then like his little cat, his black cat crosses in front of him, and then his phone rings, and it's this like staticky nothing. And we don't know what this is yet, but he's getting these weird mysterious phone calls. And then after Liz comes back and he starts getting paranoid about his wife, he gets another one of these
Another
phone
one of
calls.
those phone calls, yes.
And which sort of again signals to the audience that like there's something else is going on here. We're not quite done with like her being back is not the end of this story. And I love that like in another movie this might be the whole movie, which is he crazy, is he not, is she real, is she
Right.
not? But like I think he front ends every bit of evidence to go she's an imposter, she's an imposter, she's an
Yeah.
imposter.
He-
Like side with this main character.
Yes.
Side with Daniel in this case.
Yes, and then we learn that really she's a dog alien.
Yeah, like oh,
Which that actually, when we were going back to like thinking of maybe what his sets are like or what he's like as a human, I totally could see anyone, but maybe him writing this and being, but what is she? I like dogs. Dogs are weird. A dog. So maybe that's not a moment, or that's not something to like look too far into. Maybe that's a like, well, just a fun. I don't know.
I loved the credits where
The dogs are just
driving
like,
cars.
yeah,
and
there's
yeah,
like
yeah.
the human
Well, right, 'cause
there's like
it's
the
like-
human roadkill
Oh,
on the
I love
on
it.
the
I love
street.
it.
Yes.
And they drive
Yeah,
around it.
yeah,
And
it's
then
like-
the German Shepherd in the shower just like
yeah. Or them fucking like in human,
like normal-
in,
yeah,
yeah,
But
yeah.
dogs- I
Human thing.
actually think
Human-
that dream that she describes is sort of the key to that entire piece.
Right.
Because she tells this, she said, I had this dream. We were in this place. You were there. She's talking to her dad, the Willem Dafoe character in this piece. She says, we were all there, but life was the things were all backwards. Like people were animals and animals were people. Like dogs were in charge. And she just paints this whole scenario of this different place.
She doesn't say that it was a dream.
yeah. She says it was where they were held captive.
Yeah.
She says it was a dream. She starts by saying, I had this dream.
But then she switches it and talks about how the dream reminded her of the place
Yeah.
where they were held captive. So the dog thing is the way that she describes it. The dog thing sounds like that's the actual place she was held captive, not the dream.
This is interesting because you have seen
She frames
you
it-
have seen
she
this
frames it as a dream, but go
You
ahead.
have seen this every weekend since it came out.
Correct, yeah. 17
And
times.
Kai and I
That's
have
every
only
day.
seen it once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that I also took away that she was saying that it was the actual place.
Yeah.
So even if
She
So-
frames the first part of I had
Yeah.
this dream and then goes and the dream was like the actuality of being there. This dream reminded me of where I was and then describes
We can go back to the tape, but the way
Yeah.
that monologue goes, she
that was very detective of you.
she is equating that like it was similar to the place that she was at,
Right.
but it is all framed in like the events that happen where the dogs are in charge.
Yeah.
Is framed as she's recalling a dream, but
I don't think so.
We can go back to the tape. I swear, because I
also
rewound
love
this
that
3
it's
times
come
because I
back to
knew
the
that this
tape.
monologue was really important. So
Yeah,
I kind of
yeah,
went through this whole
yeah.
thing. But what I find really interesting about that is that we have since she comes back from being on like lost on this island or whatever out at sea, a bunch of questions are asked to her. And occasionally we get these answers from her, and then the camera cuts to black and white versions of what actually happened. And like, for instance, someone says, "Oh, what did you eat out there?" And she said, "Oh, fruit, fish." But then you cut to a black and white shot of her like eating someone's leg.
Yeah,
like
well, the guy that she came
back with. Yeah.
his leg, because they say that he's
But I bring this up because like there is stuff that happens out there that is she is not telling. There are secrets that she kept out there, very much so. And it also adds to this idea that, like, we really can't trust this version of Liz, of this person. And so and I think that's the distinction I want to draw, is that, like, I do believe that she frames this monologue about her dream in the dog world as a dream, but we as the audience know that, like, there's some other, like, you have already been lying to us. You've already told us things that are untrue about where you've been. And that leads back to the idea that, like, yeah, maybe she wasn't this, maybe she's this weird dog thing.
I gotta go back and watch it, because I swear to you, I was just like,
I thought
she lived on a dog island where these dog aliens were doing dog weirdness.
Well, that's what made me start to think that she was a dog alien, because, like,
Yes.
also now that she's a human, she could eat as much chocolate as she wants.
She says so many fascinating things in that monologue, and the one of them that kind of relates to something. So
What a great movie. The amount of times we have now said dog alien.
So halfway through this piece, because Daniel's a cop, right? And, like, there's a scene where they pull over this couple who were speeding or ran a red light or whatever. And it escalates, as incidences with cops often do. And Daniel, like, there's a passenger in the car, and the passenger gets out of the car because Daniel's freaking out. He's like, well, why do you have this cell phone, to the driver, whatever. But at some point, Daniel shoots this guy through the hand.
Yes.
And it's a shocking moment. But the most shocking thing is when he goes over and then licks the wound.
Yes.
And I only bring this up because in her monologue about the dog island, she talks about how the dogs were, like, pretty good to them. And even though they didn't get the best food, they still got food. But she says, even when we were mean to, even when, she says they licked our wounds and then like helped us out when we were injured and stuff. And I really love that. Like, I love that, again, that detail, that extra bit of, like, talking about dogs licking their wounds, licking their human pets' wounds before bandaging them. And then what does Daniel do when he shoots this guy through the hand? He licks his hand.
Yeah.
As if, and I'm not saying that he's a dog, but that symmetry is just so interesting to put into this whole thing.
Right.
How do we take that moment, though?
I don't fucking know.
You know, like,
Well, what's also interesting about when his cop partner then is talking to the therapist, and and he's like, I was really afraid for my life, and I thought he was gonna kill all of us. And the doctor just ends by going, it'll all be over, or he's okay, don't worry about it, something like that. That was so simple that cut that off, and I was like, absolutely not. But only because we're in
doctor,
this Yorgos Lanthimos film.
or is he saying that that's like, I mean, I don't know. So much of this, I was like, is this a metaphor for America? Is it, like, the first one I was thinking, like, is this a metaphor for the American dream and capitalism and being a slave to it? And, like, we feel like we need to do all these things in order to get what we want and attain. In the second one, I'm like, there's clearly a critique of police and, like, police force in America and how things get pushed under the rug all the time, and how cops out there probably don't actually get the mental health, like, services that they need. Or, like, there are so many different police forces out there that are like, oh yeah, he's fine. Like, he just shot someone. He could go back out there.
Yeah,
he's fine.
Sure.
He's, like, doing that kid outreach thing next week. It's fine. It's fine. You know, and I kept looking at it from that, like, American perspective of, like, what is this critiquing of American society?
Sure. That didn't feel like that maybe felt like something that was in there, but it didn't to me feel like the point. Or the, like, intention, or the...
It's
sure, yeah.
Yeah, but it was part of...
It's funny that you bring this up, and I know you've got your notepad up, but, like, before I forget, there are two characters who are side characters. There's a psychiatrist, and then there's the chief, the police chief.
Who is also the bartender in the first one, I believe. I believe that's the same actor.
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I only believe that, because they didn't actually... He didn't look like... I didn't
He didn't
actually
look the same. He didn't sound the same.
No, he sounded
but
the same. The way that he delivered his lines, and I only clocked it, and I didn't actually go back and look. And when I looked up on IMDb, I don't think the whole cast is actually on the IMDb, which is strange. And so there was just one actor, and so then I was like, was he also the bartender? But I would have needed to go back but it was literally just the way he said his lines, which were the weirdest way to deliver lines I have ever heard a human deliver lines.
I mean, there's so many of that
I can almost guarantee you that So they filmed this in New Orleans, or all around New Orleans. I can guarantee that everyone outside of those 6 people are probably locals.
Yeah, right.
Local
That they
actors,
just
local
brought
whatever,
in.
that they just brought in.
They didn't even necessarily feel like local actors to me, though. They felt like,
Just like people.
I want you to,
Yeah.
yes, you're my person.
So,
for this.
but
Oh,
what
they
I
felt
want to
like
bring up
bad actors to
is
me.
that like that police chief and that psychiatrist in the police department or whatever kind of both symbolize these sort of institutional characters, right? Like again, the chief of police,
Right.
this like person and this psychiatrist, and they both have the most absurdly childish voices.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's just a critique on institutions and how sort of like almost useless some of
Yes,
these
I mean,
because
it could be a critique on how institutions are so they don't help us in any way.
But like also like you don't really take them seriously. Specifically the psychiatrist, he looks like he's 15 and he talks like this. And you're like,
But
why
also
are we
the-
and he doesn't say anything useful. He's like, "Oh, you'll be fine, don't worry
and
about
also
it."
the cop or the police chief like comes over. There's this really weird cut and like split second where he comes over and he goes, "Heard your wife was back," and Daniel, right? Daniel's character goes, "Yeah," and he goes, "Okay." Or something like that. He's like, "Let me know if you need anything," or whatever, and like turns
There's
right
this,
back
like,
around.
Shot of like him, like this tracking shot of like
Yes.
the police chief walking. You think he's gonna say
Say something, and then
profound.
he says like nothing.
Yeah.
And you're
I
like,
had your wife's back. And he's
yeah,
like,
yes,
"Oh, yeah,
it is
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
I
Yeah,
love
and you're
it.
like, what? What was that? Wait, I just wanted
Yeah,
to
go
go
ahead.
back real quick to the monologue because the end of the monologue, she's talking about how she had to eat the chocolate, but
Yep.
what she really wanted and what she kept holding out for. And this is what the important thing to me that I clocked was what she keeps holding out for. And she specifically says, I didn't eat, I wouldn't eat, I wouldn't eat, I wouldn't eat, which then we watch her husband doing or her
Throw a slam.
yeah yeah, so she and then she's like, because I was holding out for the lamb, but what I realized is that like everyone gets the lamb. So essentially she goes, what I learned was it's better to eat the thing that's available all the time than the thing that runs out early every day. And I mean every day. So I kept thinking about that. And this actually ties into the theme of the first one too, which is like, we keep waiting for the thing that never comes instead of seizing the opportunity of what's right in front of us.
Yeah.
Which now that I'm thinking about it, you could go back to the very first one too, and tie in what we were just talking about with like, he never seizes the opportunity to go past his threshold point and like do the thing. Instead, he just, I don't know if that's the same theme actually.
The way she said,
But I appreciated
I appreciated this journey you just went on.
I just went on. I feel like I'm doing that every time I think of the film again. I'm like,
That's what I've been saying.
I think it's we haven't gotten to the third piece yet, but I think it's a little bit of a trap. And we've all tried to do this. I think it's a little bit of a trap to try to apply the same
thing
ideas to all
each,
of them.
right?
I think
Because
they're
it's
just different.
kinds of kindness.
I think it's all different, like
different.
views and
Yeah,
corners
yeah,
of
yeah,
these
yeah,
of similar
yeah.
ideas, but I think they're all very different on purpose.
Right.
Otherwise, what's the why have
Why
three
do
of
three?
them? Because I think they are really focusing on different aspects of stuff. In fact, like from like if you think of the two main characters are Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons, and all three of them, the first movie is them sort of meeting, and maybe there's romantic undertones. The second movie is them married, and the third movie is them kind of dissatisfied with each other. They're not romantically involved. Again, we haven't gotten to it yet. They're like almost business partners in a way.
Right.
But the way that she ends that monologue about the dream, or about the running out, it's interesting phrasing because she says something like, what is it? What was the quote again?
She says, better to eat the thing that's available all the time than the thing that runs out early every day. And then she stops and she goes, and I mean every day.
And
Makes a
the
point
idea
of, like,
of runs out every day could also be applied to my husband who leaves for work, who runs out the door every day
Sure.
while I'm stuck at home. Because I don't think, I guess she's a biologist.
Yeah.
She has a job. But like
Yeah.
it could just as easily be applied to a person who's
Sure.
like kind of leaving and not there for her.
Sure.
Which I thought was interesting. But also it's funny that she mentions the lamb is the one thing she wanted because it's alluded to, or it's mentioned earlier that like Liz's best dish is this roast lamb dish
yes.
that she makes.
And is it this one or is it the third? No, it's the third one that she doesn't eat fish.
Yes, they're all anti-fish, but
Yes. Yeah. But so this is another one I think where like just the food is a running thing and everything. And I think that to me, because this movie is called Kinds of Kindness, there's always a thing where it's like, you have to eat. You haven't eaten.
Yeah.
You know, that's like the first thing your grandmother says when you come in the door, or there's this thing of like, oh, you're putting on too many pounds, right? There's like food is a whole fucking.
Oh, in the first one, he wants him to
thing.
put on weight.
Yes.
He's like,
And
What
then-
was the weight
cheeseburgers and
situation
milkshakes.
in the second one?
Was it? Oh yeah, what is the weight situation in the second one?
Because you said
You
weight
mentioned
is
that
in all
earlier.
three.
I think maybe I was actually just thinking about the size of her foot. I don't know if it was
Sure.
a weight thing.
Because I'm also going to ask you this question when we talk about the third one, because I don't remember weight in the third
I have
one.
an answer for the third
Yeah,
one.
I have an answer for the third one as well. Well, what was my answer for the third one? She gets the she gets put on they're weighing her. They're doing the measurements for the woman that
There's a
that
specific
the whole,
weight
Yeah.
that this
that
person
this
has.
person
That's right.
has.
That this mystery person
which
they're
is
looking for has.
a really interesting.
Yeah, but food in the middle one is like, I want to feed you, and then him being like, I won't eat. So food is almost used as this weapon. Is maybe the wrong word, but it's like a
I won't
demarcation in
take
this
your
war.
kindness.
Yeah,
almost.
yeah.
Yeah. Do we move to the third one?
Well, I
or
was
no?
going to say, last question to wrap up the second one.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious, and I don't think there's a right answer. Do we think that his wife actually came back? And I'm not just saying, is it a delusion, as in like there was no one actually at the door or there was someone else at the door, but also, is this another dog alien? Like, do we actually think it's her?
I think
think
that
it's
it's
her.
her.
Okay.
And I think that because of the phone thing that you alluded to earlier, I think we keep hearing her on the phone, and she calls even after dog person is there.
And the second time that she calls, then his phone is missing.
Right.
And he's like, Liz, what'd you do with my phone? You hid my phone.
Right.
Because one assumes that it's because like he's getting phone calls from his actual wife, and she wants to then hide his phone.
Sorry, I'm just going through themed stuff again because
That's
it
okay.
just keeps popping into my head. So the first one, Jesse Plemons' character pushes through, and he does something. He crosses a limit he thought he has to come out the other side, and is rewarded for it. Kills someone. He does that in the second one as well. We don't know if he
He doesn't kill
necessarily.
anyone in the second one,
He asks her to cut out her liver, which
but
will
she
kill
does
her.
it
but she
herself.
does it herself.
Yes, but he knows. Well, yeah. Okay, you're right.
It goes back to the same. It goes back to a similar theme in the first one. No one asks him to murder anyone.
Yeah.
He says, "Do this thing."
Yeah.
And then consequences will come of it.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. The consequences aren't the point.
Yeah.
I really thought that. I mean, I was going really dark with this one. I really thought that was his real wife, and like this was going to be like a Giving Tree style. Like his wife gave everything. Like literally ended up giving her life for him. But then she showed up, and then I was like, "What the?"
You were like, yeah, that was surprising to me. I did not expect that at the end.
I thought it was going to be like the cops, and they were going to see this dead woman, and then they're going to be like, "Oh, well."
No, that would be too realistic. Also, they wouldn't do anything about it because
They'd be like, "Oh, wow, okay, well,
Yeah.
she slipped and fell, huh?"
Yeah.
slipped and fell and her liver came out.
Okay, moving on to the third one,
Hold
which
on,
is
hold on. No, hold on.
Hold
I
on,
swear I have more notes.
Chris is reading the trivia section of IMDb
true.
to us right now.
Well, I wanted. There is a big theme of like dogs are a part of this one specifically, but more importantly, this idea of like the dog and the dog's owner, right? Like, so you can kind of see this metaphor in the idea that like Liz in this case is the dog. Both we think she was a dog, like a secret dog, but also she is made to behave like a dog in that like the dog will do anything for its owner.
There's a reward system.
including including suffer harm at the hands of the owner because the owner says so, which I find fascinating. But like this is also something that sort of ties in with the first movie, wherein some owner is telling the subservient one what to do, and that it's not just like domination, but it's also necessary. Like your dog needs you to tell it what to do, otherwise it's a little lost.
In the system and the
Yes.
world that we live in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dogs obviously can run free in the wild and stuff. But
Sure,
like,
so could humans.
Yeah.
If we weren't in the
If we were in the
socio, yeah.
But I just find that I think the middle movie here is super important because I think a lot of its themes radiate throughout all the pieces of this movie, and I think it's I think somewhere embedded in it is the, I don't want to say the answer, but is a lot of the themes in this one just sort of, again, just radiate out through and in a way that is super important. There's a line that I wrote down that Liz must say. I don't know who she says it to, but she says, "Daniel never can decide."
Oh yeah.
Which also really made me think about
I clocked that too.
Jesse Plemons' character in the first movie, who can never decide.
Right.
I think there's a lot of connection between these three pieces. As different as they are, there's a lot of connection, obviously on purpose because they're part of the same movie, but like a lot more connection than is sort of on the surface.
Yeah.
That's all.
Good Bad Bad Good is an Ex Nihilo production. Original theme music done by Jen Star Hacker. Find her at hackersoundmusic.com. Opinions expressed are solely that of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views of any entity they represent.